4,000 years ago, the landscape of Britain looked wildly different to today. Just a handful of landscape features survive from that time. And of all those landscape features that survive, much like churches from the Middle Ages, most seem to be religious, spiritual in nature. I'm right in the middle of an English city today. This is a graveyard, one of the ceremonial, spiritual places that we have left in our secular modern society. So, let's cast our minds back. Let's take away all of the high-rises, all of the houses, the residential areas, even this graveyard itself, and let's try and picture this place 4,500 years ago, at the very end of the Stone Age. The most famous monuments of all, of course, are the stone circles. You get these everywhere. There are thousands of them all over the place. Then you have burial chambers, burial mounds, chambered tombs. There are lots of different types of ancient monument, but one of the most enigmatic of all must be the man-made prehistoric mounds. Most famous of all being Silbury Hill. But there are many others too. You can count the surviving examples on two hands. These things would have taken an astonishing amount of work to make. What they were used for, we have no idea. There is one other prehistoric mound in Italy that rivals it in size, being bigger in volume, but Silbury Hill is taller. So it is the tallest prehistoric mound in Europe. But, well, it's one among many. These are some of the most enigmatic prehistoric monuments anywhere. But the fascinating thing is that these things very likely would have been much more numerous in ancient times. In areas that are built up in urban environments today, like Nottingham where I am now, or London, or Birmingham, or anywhere like this that's become a huge joined up mass of urban towns, the prehistoric monuments that did exist have long been taken away. One, Marlborough Mound, not far from Silbury Hill, is a really good example of this, which was built on top of in later ages. So Silbury Hill stands in the middle of one of the most astonishing prehistoric landscapes in all of Britain, if not the world. Not far away is Avebury, the largest surviving stone circle in Britain, if not the world. Not far away is West Kennet Longbarrow, built 1,000 years before, at the very dawn of the Neolithic, to house the illustrious dead of those early farming people who'd come over from Europe, to kickstart the societal revolution of the new Stone Age, which brought the Neolithic package of farming animals and farming goods to Britain, to revolutionise society. All the way from that point, when the first individuals were interred in West Kennet Longbarrow, all the way through to Silbury Hill's construction 1,000 years later, this place was one of the most important in all of Britain. Now, what we see left today is a grass-covered mound. It looks like a natural hill. If you're driving past, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was a natural hill. But in reality, underneath that grass, the whole thing is constructed of chalk. It must have been an incredible achievement at the time. And most importantly, it looked incredible. Gleaming white in the sun. For visitors coming from afar, it would have been, quite simply, the most astonishing thing they would ever see in their lives. And this is the interesting thing, because when archaeologists have dug into Silbury Hill over various points over the last 300 years or so, they've discovered some fascinating things. organic refuse between various layers suggests that this thing wasn't built in one go. It was constructed over multiple generations. People seem to have come here maybe once a year and deposited chalk to make their mark on this place. And that's where the super interesting part comes in, because this may not have been really intended to result in a singular monument that we see today. It may have been more about the process. Individuals coming here as groups to form larger communities, get a sense of identity and who they were. An interesting comparison that I read the other day in an academic journal was that of a barn raising. So, unlike West Kennet that came before, and this graveyard that I'm in today, Silbury Hill has no evidence of burials having taken place there. The place was for a different function. In the middle of the 3rd millennium BC, some really interesting changes were taking place in Britain. The era that we know now as the Neolithic, the New Stone Age, was coming to an end. New peoples were arriving in Britain, bringing the technology of metal with them. Now, we can't underestimate the importance and the earth-shattering implications of this new technology for the original people in Britain. For centuries, archaeologists have noticed the change between these two cultures. The so-called beaker people coming across from Europe and the original Neolithic farmers. In the last 50 years or so, there's been a trend in archaeology to downplay this new people arriving in Britain. But interestingly, DNA studies have shown in the last couple of years that there really was a huge change in population at that point. There may even have been a level of plague for the Neolithic farmers that brought their world to an end, or at least forced them to make drastic changes to their lives. Now, what does Silbury Hill have to do with this? Well, recently many archaeologists, Mike Parker Pearson among them, have looked at Silbury Hill and independently come to the conclusion that this may well have been a kind of final stand for the Neolithic farmers. The culmination of their civilization in the face of new people arriving. So, of course, we can't say for sure. But what we do know is that after Silbury Hill, nothing of this kind would be attempted again in Britain. This suggests many things. The sheer nature of its construction, displaying incredible technical skill to create it, has led experts like Ewan McKee to suggest that this wasn't built by just everyday groups of individuals. This was a concerted effort by a theocratic, authoritarian elite that held total power over the Avebury area at that point. Very probably with tendrils stretching out in all directions much further. It's probable that worshippers and travellers would have been attracted from afar to come in and just bear witness to what was going on at this place. And in regards to this, there's a fascinating comparison to be made to Native American societies of North America. The prehistoric mound builders at places like Cahokia, and even much earlier at Poverty Point, have many similarities to places like Silbury Hill. So, we may be looking at Cahokia and Poverty Point at a similar kind of culture going on, similar ideas. Well, these are just some random thoughts on a Monday morning. So, thanks for watching, folks. What do you think Silbury Hill was used for? What do you think any of these prehistoric sites were used for? I'm always thinking about these things. This is one of the things that drives me forward in life. What was going on at these places? What was happening? Well, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll put another video on screen here, and I'll see you on the next one. Nice one. Right. Gonna go get some breakfast.